Hi everyone! I'm Kendra Mosley with Children in the Fields campaign. Thank you all for joining us today for our weekly broadcast called Live Thursday, all about COVID-19 and farm workers and farm worker families. Today's topic is migrant families in crisis. We've invited two special guests, Cleo Rodriguez from the National Migrant and Seasonal Head Start Association and Norma Flores López from Justice for Migrant Women. They'll be joining me shortly, but for now I want to note a few things. If you don't already know, AFOP is an association of 52 member organizations all across the country in every single state except Alaska, but including Puerto Rico. We all work for the good of farm workers by making sure they have life-sustaining, family-sustaining jobs. Many of our members offer wraparound services. They're connected with the migrant clinics, Migrant Head Start, emergency services, other things like that. And of course, offices are closed at the moment, face-to-face interactions limited, but we're setting things up virtually as well as we can. And many folks are doing drop-offs of foodstuffs and working with the food pantries, and they're doing collection drives also for the face masks that farm workers need to do their job. We are doing the contest right now. I want to remind you all to go to our website, afop.org/CIF. The contest information is all right there. Please remember to use the 2020 guidelines. If any of y'all know migrant children, farm worker children between the ages of 10 and 18 years old, they are eligible to enter our contest, and we have scholarships and a free iPad. Free tablet for the winner. So please go to afop.org/CIF. You can also view our previous live streams on that same page. And we have several guests that have joined us in prior weeks on similar topics. Right now we're all about the COVID-19 stuff because it's really hit the agricultural community really hard. So we're still just inviting more guests to talk about how their communities are handling it. Thank you to all who have supported the project so far. We hope you all can keep joining us each week, Thursdays at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. And if you're interested in getting our announcements by email, please just shoot us a message here on Facebook and we'll add you to the list. So let me see if I can invite our first guest. I only see a few folks. I see 20 folks. Great. So just give me a moment while I figure this out. I'm gonna invite a few people. You know, I don't see, let me see, hang on. I don't see Cleo on here, so I'm going to actually invite him on the phone, but I want to introduce him first. So Cleo Rodriguez is the Executive Director of National Migrant and Seasonal Head Start Association in Washington, D.C. He's actually joining us from Texas right now, though, because that's his home base. He has led the association for about 8 years, I think, and during his tenure has done many great things, including initiating a summer internship in D.C. for former migrant and seasonal Head Start students. Cleo's parents were both migrant farm laborers who toiled tirelessly in the cotton fields across the state of Texas and other southern states. Cleo himself did seasonal summer work in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and he's proud to work on behalf of migrant and seasonal farm workers. So Cleo, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I hope that they can hear us.
Yes, I think they do.
And this Kendra has been this is crazy because as crazy as all the situation is, and then I'm having to learn new technology. Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry.
You can't do all this in one time.
I put you through the ringer. I know.
Yeah.
So sorry. Thank you for hanging in there with me.
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
So Cleo, do you want to tell me just a little bit about the National Migrant and Seasonal Head Start Association, just to clue our viewers in?
Absolutely. So the National Migrant Seasonal Head Start Association is an association that represents the interest of 30,000, approximately 30,000 migrant children and their families across the country. And we do that. We have member organizations in 38 states around the country, and each Migrant Seasonal Head Start program is uniquely customized to meet the needs of that particular community in terms of, it's an agriculture-rich time during January, February, March, and April, then that's when our program is in existence. If it's a summer-rich agriculture time, that's when our program is in existence, et cetera, et cetera. So they all run based on what the local need is. They have that kind of local flexibility to serve children and families. Our programs are also designed to serve infants and toddlers all the way to school age, and that's always been a big, major part of Migrant Seasonal Head Start, is being able to serve the infants and toddlers all the way to school age. And then the last thing I always like to point out is that unlike a regional Head Start program, in the Migrant Seasonal Head Start program, our families are required to work. There's a work requirement that says that 51% of your income must come from agriculture. And so that's something that we're very proud of, is that our families are actually working and not only working, but now have been recognized as a essential workforce. And so we're extremely proud of the fact that our families work and provide a food source in this country.
Yes, so are we. I am curious, are the Head Start centers open right now, or are most of them closed?
So yesterday I was on a call with a bunch of our directors, and I believe the majority, about 100% of our center-based programs are actually closed. And but we actually, some of our programs have what's called a family childcare option, and this is a program option where programs may have relationships with small business owners that run a registered family home in their home. And so I believe that there are some programs that are that have that program option are exercising that option, because it's smaller groups. There's 5 or 6 kids in a particular registered home, and so some of our programs are using that model to serve families right now. But the majority of them have had to shut down because of this situation right now.
So, what are they doing if they don't have access to the Head Start situation? How is this all impacting them? What have you been hearing?
Well, it's a very harsh reality of what's going on out there, Kendra. It's really what we've noticed is the vulnerability of our families. Our families already are in a very vulnerable stage, right? There's a lot of risk factors in relationship to our families and to the children. There's so many risk factors as well as protective factors, but a lot of risk factors that our families are exposed to. And this has just completely further exposed those risk factors because of the vulnerabilities of the families. And so what I'm hearing a lot of, we actually had a town hall with over 125 of our migrant farmworker families. A couple of weeks ago, we hosted this town hall where we really just asked our parents, our farmworker parents, what's going on? What's going on in your communities, and how can we as an association help you deal with what's happening in your communities right now? And as bad as we think that it is, it's worse. And that was probably the thing that I walked away with the most, and how disheartening that was to understand just how bad the situation is. And so what's happening is almost 95% of the families that we spoke to, at least one parent has actually quit their job in order to stay home with their young kids. And then there's the gender inequality of that, because typically it's the mom that's quit her job. And so I'm sure Norma, who's going to be speaking shortly, is going to speak to that situation, because it's a major inequality in terms of gender inequality. And so that's what we're recognizing, is that families are having to give up at least half of their income for mom to have to stay home with their kids. So we haven't heard of any other families doing anything drastic like taking children to the fields or anything. We just haven't heard those situations yet, but I'm not convinced that they're not existing at this time.
Right. Yeah. Wow. What have you yourself been out in the fields visiting families, and if so, what have you been seeing, like, in terms of, or been hearing in terms of injustices to farm workers since this started?
So I haven't been out to go. Everybody, as you know, has been on travel ban. So I've been mostly communicating with our families via FaceTime or those other platforms, and as well as the telephone. And again, it's the reality. When we hosted that town hall, there was a lot of concerns that the parents shared about their safety and the well-being of them as workers, because they don't feel like they are being protected in their workplace. There's some organizations or some farms that have taken safety measures and have done, have made concerted efforts to make sure their families are safe or their workers are safe and have conditions that are conducive in this type of environment. But then again, there's some that just haven't employed those same kind of strategies or those same techniques to make sure their families are safe or their workers are safe. And so that's one thing that I really heard a lot of from our farm worker families. The other thing that I heard was just the mental health of our families, and just how uncertain they feel and how stressed out they are, and how vulnerable they feel right now. Vulnerable because they have children that are at home, not so much the younger children, but the older children. And I was really taken by how many of the families shared their utmost concern with their K through 12 students that are staying behind, that they don't have access to, the internet. They may not have, internet access in their homes. They may not have the hardware that they need in terms of computers or the technology that they need in order for those students to be able to continue their studies. And just the real concern that exists within our community was I was surprised. Surprised, yes, but not. But just how prevalent that was and how present that was in the conversation that we had. So it's like the mental health issues, the K through 12 issues that families really stress, and then the simple, basic necessities that families need, like food and just food was an issue. And here we are, we're talking about farm workers who provide a food source for anyone and everyone that's on this webinar right now. That's their job, yet they are still not having access to those simple basic needs to make sure that they're able to feed their families and to feed themselves. And so, and recognizing, the farm workers recognizing that there's a lot of different strategies and a lot of different funding that is being provided, the stimulus funding for families and for workers and all this, and yet not being able to access some of these fundings and some of these stimulus safeguards that are out there in terms of healthcare, in terms of food and safety, in terms of direct payments, not having that access to them, and or not even sure if they have access to them, but assuming that they don't have access to them, or not wanting to take advantage of those safety nets that are being put in place right now for various reasons. And so these were just really sad to hear this and to understand that we have a lot of families out there who are making a huge contribution to this country, yet are being completely compromised and completely overlooked in terms of so many of these safety nets that are being put out there. And so myself, with the National Migrant Seasonal Head Start Association, organizations like Justice for Migrant Women, AFOB, Farm Worker Justice, so many of these advocate organizations that we've kind of coalesced together to really address these basic needs that we want our families to have access to. So we've really, excuse me, pardon me, we've really spent a lot of time really leveraging every relationship that we have on Capitol Hill and leveraging our collective power to push forward this message that the food source of this country is vulnerable. The workers that are providing that food source are very vulnerable, and we've got to step up and we've got to make sure that they have the equal rights because of the essential services that they're providing to this country.
Exactly. I'm a little worried, like, as this goes on, what the farm workers are going to do as the virus progresses and continues to make people sick. What is your sense of what people are planning to do? Like, do you think that people are still planning to migrate this year? Do you think they will migrate more separately, or will they stick together? Like, what is your sense of that?
So what I'm hearing, and this is just anecdotal information that I'm hearing just from different programs, is that families are still looking because they are still looking to maybe make some kind of move in order to pursue work and trying to continue getting a flow of income into their family. I would imagine that we're going to see a dip in the number of families that actually move. My guess is that we're going to see some lower numbers of families moving just because of the uncertainty. Is there actually work somewhere? And we just haven't seen it happen yet to the extent that it's happened in some of these other processing plants where the workers are becoming ill and really having to shut down different organizations or different workplaces. We haven't seen that yet. Is it coming? It's hard to say, but I kind of imagine that we're not going to start to see some of that, and then the impact that huge impact that's going to have on workplaces, on income that the families are relying on, and on the food source that this country is relying on. So we may still be, kind of waiting for that to really have the impact that I suspect it could have on our workers, on our workplaces, and on our food supply.
Exactly. All of these measures that have been taken are all about, like, securing the workforce for the sake of the food, but not focusing on the workforce for their own sake, like protecting their health and their safety. Like,
correct.
The most that we've seen, I guess, is Wisconsin. I saw that they put a law in place for their for more safety measures to be taken, and California is sending money to undocumented workers, which is so, I mean, for me, a no-brainer, because they're the ones that are growing our food, but people don't seem to make the connection. It's like, if they grow our food, we need to help them. Like, it's not either or. You have to take care of them. You have to keep our farm workers safe. So yeah, sorry, I got on my own soapbox there.
I mean, you couldn't speak the truth stronger, because that's exactly right. Like, and of course, you and I, this is the mission of the work that we do. This is the love of and the passion that we have for the work that we do. But it's so simple, because you're right, because and I just don't think that we have set the alarms yet about the vulnerability of the food source in this country. Because if we have a major illness in some of these major big farms, these conglomerate farms, if we start to have a real issue with illness, the impact that's going to have, and that's the other thing too that I'm hearing a lot of families are sharing, is that a lot of these farms are growing and throwing. They're just growing it and throwing it away because they have no way of processing it at the speed that it needs to be processed to get it to the consumer. I'm hearing a lot of
the food. You mean the food? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The food's getting thrown away. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then the milk and dump, or whatever they call it, pump and dump or something.
Right.
So
right.
A lot of this is happening. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mentioned the internship program at the beginning. Can you let us know, have you guys made a decision about whether or not the National Migrant Seasonal Head Start internship program is happening this year?
Well, so, we have identified, we went through the whole process of the applications, and yes, each and every year, we host an internship program that is open to former migrant and seasonal head start students that are currently in college that have completed at least 60 hours of college credit, and we bring them to DC for a summer internship experience, and really it's a mentorship experience. It's really providing an opportunity for children that grew up in the migrant and seasonal farmworker families to have an opportunity to intern in Washington, D.C., and to be exposed to things that they may or may not have had access to. And so, this is the ninth summer that we've had this program. It's been a very successful program, and we're very humbled by the success of it. And so, yes, right now we are cautiously moving forward, but each and every day I get more and more worried about the actual reality of being able to host the students this year. Like right now, Jenna, who's on my associate director of the office, we communicate about it every day. We have plans moving forward to say yes, but we also are realistic to say that there's a possibility that we may have to, not have the internship this program, and it just absolutely 100% breaks my heart because we want to host the students, we want to be able to have that impact, but we also want them to be safe, and we also want to be realistic in the experience that we'll be able to provide this coming summer with everything that's going on. So I guess I really didn't answer your question. I sounded very much like a politician, but we're still trying to figure this out, to be honest, Kendra.
Yeah, same here. It's just so hard to know what to do because we still just don't know what's going to happen. It's impacting everybody, and even our contest, we were like trying to scramble because we don't know how many people can even go to the post office to send in their entries. So, it just adds a whole nother layer of complexity to everything, to say the least. I mean, that's in the best of circumstances. So, Cleo, thank you so much for joining. I think I have one more question if you have time, and it's just to end on a higher note. Oh, actually, I forgot one. What do you think that students with farm worker backgrounds can do right now to help protect their communities?
Can you repeat? You were coming in and out there. Do you mind repeating the question?
Sure, yeah. What can students who are from a farm worker background, so people on our page, a lot of them are farm worker children, or children of farm workers, and you yourself are one. But what can they do right now to protect their communities? I saw in some articles some people were trying to call in tips to hotlines that certain places were were not protecting their parents, but they had to be really careful with that because they could get their families in trouble with the manager. So
I think it's a real fine line because you're right, and I think that if there are students that are on this webinar right now, find your voice. You have a voice. You have specific rights that you are guaranteed as a student in this country, and that's so important that don't lose sight. Your educational experience has been disrupted this year, and it's unfortunate that has happened, but don't use this as an excuse to stay behind. Don't use this as an excuse to give as a board to better yourself. Students they're so much smarter than we sometimes give them credit for, and think of the enormous technology that we have at our disposal, right? And even though some of them may not have it at their immediate disposal, but find ways to keep yourself informed of what's going on. Find ways to stay in. Don't use this as an excuse to stay behind. And emphasize that more. Use this as an opportunity to springboard to elevate yourself. To use this and say, you know what, I'm not going to stay behind. You know what, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get ahead. You know what, I'm going to figure out what my voice is and how I can use that voice to protect our community. Because we all have a role in that, and the message is so simple to me. The message is, secure our food source by securing our workforce. I mean, that's simple. Like,
Exactly.
I love it. One of my favorite quotes from one of my colleagues in Florida, López, says, the last time I checked, everybody liked to eat. She's absolutely right. Everybody likes to eat. If we like to eat, then we got to protect our food source. If we're going to protect our food source, then we got to protect those that created that food source for our country.
So well put, Cleo. Thank you. I think Norma has joined, and Norma, I apologize. I do see you both on Facebook, and I hear you on the call. This is the first time that we've done Facebook Live through our page and not with a third-party platform. So I do believe I should have done it through my phone and not the desktop. But anyways, all that to say, thank you for joining us. I want to introduce you properly as well, and let everyone know who's on. So Norma Flores López grew up as a child of a migrant farm worker family from South Texas. She began working in the fields at the age of 12, where she continued working until she graduated from high school. She has long been an active advocate for migrant farm worker children's rights and continues to raise awareness on issues affecting the farm worker community. She is now the Chief Programs Officer for Justice for Migrant Women, which advocates for farm worker women and leads many initiatives to help improve their lives. Previously, Norma was the director of Children in the Fields campaign, not right before this position, but several years ago. And it was she who started the essay and art contest that's been going on for a while and it's open right now. So Norma, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start, can you tell us a little bit about Justice for Migrant Women?
Absolutely. Justice for Migrant Women does advocacy work to be able to improve the rights for migrant women. We see women, not only those that migrate to work in the fields from state to state, but those that come from other countries that are moving across state lines to do all kinds of work, whether it's domestic work, whether it's field work. And we see that oftentimes they are overlooked and not provided the support and the rights that they deserve, even though their work is absolutely important. It is the backbone of our country and what helps lift up our communities. These are women that often live, whether it's in rural communities or in urban areas, but nonetheless, we look at being able to advocate for them to make sure that we are ending gender-based violence, that we are providing them with basic rights, with equal pay, and making sure that our policies include them and their voices. But it's a great organization. I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Yes, and we are so happy to work with you all on all the things that you do, and we're happy to have you on to talk about what women in particular are dealing with right now. Since the pandemic really started, have you been hearing anything from the farm worker families about how it's been impacting them?
Absolutely. Women are being impacted, are taking the bigger brunt of a lot of these risks and difficult situations that this pandemic has put all farm workers, but again, a special burden on women. As many working women across America right now that are trying to manage their children at home and doing their work are experiencing just, how important it is to be able to appreciate our daycare workers and our schools and our teachers and everybody else that helps us with our children. Farm worker women don't have that support system. As Cleo mentioned, many of even the migrant seasonal Head Start centers have had to close because of the safety issues related to this epidemic and wanting to make sure that we're not spreading the COVID-19 virus and getting people ill. So these women, a lot of the times, they're having to leave the workplace. And so that's half of the income. And especially for single moms, that's all of their income that they're losing. Farm workers have been cut out of a lot of the relief packages that are getting passed through Congress. If they live in a mixed status home or even themselves are undocumented, even if they have been paying for taxes through an ITN, they do not qualify for any of this aid. And so many of these women have the burden of needing to be able to find a way to make ends meet at home, providing the care for their children, being able to feed them when they when these kids depended on the schools and the Head Start centers and other places to be able to provide meals, they no longer have access to that. Many of them have to drive out into the community, putting at risk their health to even be able to collect those foods for their children, and are afraid of having to go hungry. Food banks are stretched out to the maximum. A lot of the aid in these rural communities are really stretched thin, and farm worker women are having to feel all of that burden at home with their children. In addition, the other thing that we're particularly concerned about is the fact that there has been an increase in cases of domestic violence, and women are the ones that are typically victims of these situations. And now with the shelter in place orders that have been put in, and women being stuck at home with very few resources, we're definitely worried for women that are in abusive relationships. And so those are just a couple of the issues that are impacting women in particular. But these are effects that are being felt across all families, especially farm worker families.
Yeah, and the shelter-in-place order is kind of ironic. I mean, it just sounds like a good thing, but when you're sheltering in a place where you're not safe, that's awful. Sorry.
Yes, and this is concerning also for farm workers that live in migrant housing. There has been housing that has typically not followed a lot of restrictions around safety and places to be able to wash your hands, and those are things that we have been concerned about for years. Yeah. So now there's a special light being shown on it now, where many of these places that they are provided for housing do not follow CDC recommendations of safe social distancing. So even in those particular places, it's really hard to be able to have places to be able to wash their hands, places to be able to sleep safely away from other people that are not related to you, that are not part of your family, when they're being transported out into the field, when they're working in the field. Some places are trying to put in some practices in place, but it's not uniform and it's not being enforced adequately. And so we're very concerned about the risk of having COVID-19 spread very quickly in these fields. And because of limited PPE, the protective gear for outreach workers, for health workers in these rural communities, we're also hearing reports of health sites having to close or plan on not operating because of the lack of PPE. So even for these sort of places where there's a huge risk of the spread, without these health sites for people to be able to access, especially those that are undocumented, we're very afraid of their ability to be able to get the health care that they need, and to get it, and especially for those that get those extra complications that need special equipment like ventilators. Rural communities are really struggling with that as a whole. So we're very worried about the ability of farm workers being able to get the health care that they need if they are to get sick.
Yeah. If you're all watching us, I want to remind you, you can type into the comments any questions that you might have for Norma or for Cleo. We're talking right now about migrant families in crisis due to COVID-19, and just having a conversation with some partners. I want to mention that we all have a pretty good working relationship. Norma has worked with AFOP in the past and also with Migrant Seasonal Head Start, so we all know each other very well, and it's great to have you on the phone. And to hear your voices again. My next question for you, Norma. I know you mentioned that some women have been leaving their jobs basically to take care of their kids. For those who don't have that option and have to go to work, what are they doing? Are they taking their kids with them? Are they leaving their kids with neighbors? All of the above?
That has been the other part that's pretty alarming. For those that have to take their kids out there with them, they're taking them out into the field. U.S. labor law allows for children as young as 12 to be able to work in agriculture in pretty dangerous jobs with very few protections and regulations to keep them safe. And in these situations, what we're particularly concerned about is that there are practically no restrictions to the number of hours they can work when school is out of session. And so with the physical buildings being closed and a lot of these lessons now being moved to virtual platforms. We know, as Cleo had explained, that children of farm worker families are having a hard time accessing these assignments, and with the added financial pressure of being able to help their family make ends meet, especially if their mom is being forced to be at home to watch the kids, we know that this has an added risk of seeing an increase of the number of children that are working out in agriculture. We know that our systems are stretched thin, so the chances of enforcement being adequately put across into the field to make sure that young children are not being exploited and are not being put in harm's way, we know that that's compromised. And so we're very concerned about the number of children that are going to be out in the field. We're very concerned about the kinds of conditions and the health risks that are going to come with that. Agriculture is already one of the most dangerous industries, right up there with construction and mining. And now, in addition to that, we have the added danger of COVID-19, as I mentioned, of the fear of that spreading, of very few people being out there to watch out after these children, the risk of exploitation, of wage theft, of even sexual exploitation for young girls. So this is all alarms of why it's scary to be able to have these kids go out into the field. And again, that's for those that have that added pressure to go, but many of these moms are having to stay at home and just forgo wages. I spoke recently to a farm worker mother who was very concerned, who is undocumented, does not qualify for a lot of these aids, and was going to do their best to be able to round up whatever money they did have to pay some of the rent and hope that the landlord wouldn't kick them out and make them go homeless, along with these children. And so it's important to be able to support and to push and ask Congress to make sure that any of these sort of relief packages that are going through do not exclude farm workers who are essential workers who put food on our tables but are being carved out of a lot of these helps. And what this does is it puts this added pressure on these children whom the vast majority of U.S. citizens are not receiving any of the aid that they are supposed to be getting to stay safe, and are also having to forego their education and to be able to put their health at risk just so we could be able to have fresh fruits and vegetables on our tables. All meanwhile, this is something that could have a policy solution if Congress ensures that everybody, especially essential workers, are being taken care of and included in these relief packages.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just joining us, we're on the phone with Cleo and with Norma. And Cleo Rodriguez from National Migrant and Seasonal Head Start, Norma Flores López from Justice for Migrant Women. We're about to wrap up with the prepared questions, so if you have any questions of your own, please type them into the chat. Norma, I have another question for you, though. Do you think that there's going to be a shortage of farm workers given what's happening with people having to quit their jobs and have other responsibilities?
Absolutely. We know that there's definitely going to be a huge shortage of farm workers as it is. Farm workers are already getting limited to their ability to be able to migrate and follow the harvest. As this continues to spread, we're going to have a lot of farm workers that are going to fall ill, possibly even losing their lives because they will not have the support that they need to be able to get the health care that they need. And growers are not implementing quickly enough the safety practices recommended by CDC to keep them safe. Again, they're getting carved out of a lot of this aid, and they need to be able to feed their families. So if they can't do this through agricultural work, they're going to have to find somewhere else to be able to make this happen. And we're going to see a lot more children out there trying to be able to replace the income that their parents are losing. So we're very alarmed about the inability for farm workers to be able to get the support that they need. Justice for Migrant Women have been trying to be able to create a national response to this. We have started a pandemic relief fund, and we're collecting dollars to be able to put them out straight to the front lines and give them these grants to farm worker serving organizations that are on the front lines, and making sure that the farm workers are able to get dollars to be able to buy their groceries, to be able to get some of the basic needs that they have, to be able to replace some of the income that they're not being able to get through work. Again, because women have to leave the work field, because they have to feed their children, etc. Struggling to be able to find the basics like toilet paper and protective gear. we're also working with the fashion designer, Maria de la Torre, who is working hours into the morning to make sure to make face masks that are going to go out, both PPE, protective gear for healthcare and outreach workers, so that we can be able to make sure that those clinics are open and available to provide farm workers services, and at the same time, also cloth masks for farm workers to be able to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 and the spread, to be able to try to flatten that curve. So we're trying to be able to get these much needed resources out into the community. If folks are looking for ways to be able to support, you can go to our Facebook page or our website for Justice for Migrant Women and be able to see how you can donate. Our goal is to be able to raise $3 million. We're about at a little bit over the $300,000 mark.
That's
and
awesome.
Again, those dollars are just going directly out into the field to farm worker families in need. And with the mask as well, you can donate to that fund, and that money, we're also sending money over to the mask project to buy material. If you know how to sew, you could be able to help sign up through there and make masks, and all of these are going to go out straight to the farm worker communities that are in most need as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just typed into the chat the websites for Justice for Migrant Women, as well as National Migrant Seasonal Head Start Association, and then also Children in the Field. So utilize those websites. Justice for Migrant Women is doing so many great things, and I'm really happy to hear about that. And $3 million, wow, that is an ambitious goal, but I have no doubt that you guys can do it. And so if you all are interested, please click on those links and follow follow the prompt on the website. We have not received any questions from the viewers, but I assume that's because you all did such a good job of answering them in advance. Cleo, do you have anything to add?
Actually, Norma does such a great job, and thank God I didn't have to follow Norma. But you do also, Norma, because I assume you can hear me, Norma, but I just want to do a shout out to Norma, because I know that she, is new to this position, but not new to this kind of work, and just the continued work that she does in this space. And I'm just really excited that we, with the National Migrant Seasonal Head Start Association, get to continue working with Justice for Women and the children in the fields, and just because what we're recognizing and what we know is that, collectively we're going to just have a greater impact, and we're having to move at a pace that I've never moved at before, like just really being very responsive and immediate responses, because we have no time to vacillate. I mean, it's really just quick responses that we're all having to respond to. And so I appreciate, being just a small part of this collaboration that we're doing to make sure that our children and our families are taken care of.
Exactly. Yeah, and I appreciate you both so much as well. We did actually have one question come in from Belen. How are the various communities working with migrant health mobile units to make them more visible in the most rural areas? And if you need me to repeat that, I'll say it again. How are the various communities working with migrant health mobile units to make them more visible in the most rural areas? Does either of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So what we've been doing at Just Migrant Women, as I mentioned, when we had Maria de la Torre, the fashion designer, reach out to us and say, hey, how can I help? How can I roll up my sleeves and be of use and get these masks out to farm workers? Because he had been seeing a lot of the media we were doing and sharing the stories and sounding the alarm of how important it was to be able to support farm workers and the lack of this equipment. To be able to protect outreach workers and healthcare clinics and farm workers themselves. So we reached out to the National Center on Farm Worker Health, and they talked to us about the 170 health clinics that are out in the rural community serving the migrant farm worker families and some of the needs that they have. And so we've been working very closely with them on coordinating efforts to make sure that the masks are going out to the areas that are needed the most. And we're continuing those conversations with those folks to make sure that we're able to support them in the ways that they need. We've been working with companies like Walmart and other folks that have donated material, that have donated funds, to make sure that we're able to get these masks out to the farm worker community. And so we're definitely in communication with them. We've also connected them with people on the Hill are, whether it's through the Hispanic caucus and the chair of the Hispanic caucus, Congressman Joaquin Castro, has been a great partner with us in making sure that our needs are being heard. So we've also connected them together to make sure that they are getting the funds that they need to be able to ensure that the doors stay open and are able to provide those services to farm workers. We know that with some of these clinics, what they've been moving to is trying to do more of the teledoc, but that's really difficult when you have very spotty broadband, especially in rural communities.
Exactly.
And in migrant camps where there is no signal, whether it's your cell phone or even internet signal. So what we've been doing is also trying to see if we can get hotspots that are donated so we can service the farm worker community as well. And so we're trying again to be able to provide them with the resources they need and to be able to raise their visibility, working in partnership with other organizations that are on the ground, on the front lines, to make sure that they know about these healthcare providers and making sure we're sharing information so that they could be able to share that as they go out there and minimize the number of trips that have to be out to the front lines when we're trying to service the farm worker community, sort of a one-stop shop. But those are different ways that we're trying to be able to make sure that we're working in partnership and get farm workers the healthcare needs that they need.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. Man, just the thought crossed my mind when you said that donating hotspots it's just a term that would not have made any sense even 10 years ago. But this is the world that we're living in. We need internet connection to get health care. So and that, yeah, of course, puts the farm worker community at more of a disadvantage than they already were at. Yeah, this has been wonderful to have you on. Thank you all for joining us. I want to remind you, I think we're going to wrap this one up. But I want to remind you that we're having this again next week, and we'll have guests from California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation and Farm Worker Justice to talk about the legal side of things. I know a lot of people have been interested to hear what the public charge rule means for them at this time, because they're in a place of even greater need where they need to access services, and now they're afraid, if I do such and such, will my green card application be at risk? So that's one question we'll definitely be asking. But please, please, please send us your questions. We want to ask the questions that you want answers to. So just send us a message on here with a question, and we'll make sure it's answered. Also, if you want to be a guest on this broadcast, send us a message, and we'll get in touch with you. We are always excited to highlight the work of our partners and to give shout outs to the farm worker communities all across the U.S. We are all, as this has been said, it's becoming a bit cliche, but we're all separately in this together. So we want to help you as much as we're able to from home, working from home through Facebook Live broadcasts. And that's the tool that we have to be of help at this time. So Cleo and Norma, I want to say again, thank you so much. Thanks for working through the technical difficulties with me. I know it was a headache, so I really, really appreciate your patience and your help.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all those people online. Thank you for continuing to carry the torch for our migrant families. And stay strong, guys. We're going to get through this.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.